Alright, so this lawn tractor has seen better days, obviously. This is a John Deere 420 lawn and garden tractor. It has a big deck. It's hydrostatic. I believe I have the entire motor or mower, but you know, till I get to it, who knows. So John Deere 420 400 series were hydrostatic. That's what that big red bobble is on the end of that rod there. You got take her forward, take her back. There we go. But what defines the 400 series is, I believe, a couple things. One, that red lever there is a high-low for the rear end. That red button there, that's a locking diff. So if you had a 300 series, it would look almost identical. Like a 322, 318, 316, 312, 314, 332 would look very similar. Split brakes. Split brakes. I've got those on my 322. They work real well for snow plowing. The other thing that makes the 400 series, I believe, is the fact that the deck is actually shaft driven. So all my 300s I've had have been a pulley on the engine to a mule drive to the deck. This one actually has a dual pulley on the front of the engine, the PTO clutch. It's got a tensioner right there, and then it goes and drives the deck pulley. Deck pulley down there. So that's, as far as I know, the difference between a 300 something and a 400 something is split rear end, high-low, locking diff, deck drive, or drive shaft driven deck. So I'll start kind of at the front here. I already explained drive shaft. There's your tensioner pulley. You got dual pulleys down there because it takes two belts. That just prevents wear. Big cast iron front axle. It's got nice tires. Are decent, though they're flat. They've got plenty of tread, and I don't see a size written on them. It says 16 by 8.5 by 8. Just a single cotter pin in the center. Should have a plastic cap over this, but it doesn't. The nice thing about these, they are hydrostatic, and they use the hydrostat pressure to drive the power steering. I love it. Absolutely love it. This one came with, my other one has, this one I took it off and sold it, suicide knob for the steering wheel, and it's really helpful with that hydrostatic, that hydraulic steering. This one appears is original. These are sealed, so if they start leaking real bad at the seals, you're gonna have to cut these welds, and big mess. You're probably better off just buying another cylinder, honestly. The deck's easy to remove. It's got 2 pins in the front. It's got a pin on each side right here in the mid. And I haven't actually used this mower. I bought it. An older gentleman was mowing. He heard a pop. He had a loss of power. He finished up mowing. He drove it into his shop, and he pulled the engine to find he had thrown a rod. But prior to that, he said he had a lot of pieces on the deck re-welded. He had some, there's a weld repair there. It doesn't look amazing. Looks better than what I would do, honestly, but it's got some thin spots on the deck. But overall, you know what, it's in pretty good shape for being as old as it is. You got your hydraulic fluid cooler. These cool your hydraulic fluid for your rear end. They look a little dinged up, but they're in good condition as far as I can see. This wiring mess under here, there should be a plate that goes right where my hand is. Wire mess, plate. Battery will sit right here, as you can see with the battery cables. Transmission oil. My 318, I have been putting John Deere High Guard in it. I believe that's what it calls for. Let's move back a little bit. This one has a fuel shutoff. Reserve, normal, off. It's off because there's no engine in it and because the gas cap is broken, so the tank is actually full of water. 3 spool hydraulics. So you've got, this one's actually stuck. This one moves freely. You've got 3 spools of hydraulics, and this one actually has, I believe this one's the float. You know, probably based off of the pictures, this inside one is probably your float, which just means when you push it forward, it stays forward. These hydraulics run the deck lift system. They also run these remotes up front. Got 2 sets of remotes on each side, or a set of remote on each side, 2 total. That's for hydraulic snow blowers. I've got a 54-inch 4-way blade that is run on my 322 with those. So the hydraulics are nice. I like them. They're very good. You got your basic throttle. This one only has a front PTO. It's electric. It's sitting in my garage. You've got some warning lights, oil pressure, PTO on, battery voltage low, and that's it. There's your choke cable. This is your key. It runs just the standard Indac cheap lawnmower key. Here's my model number. My model number specs out for it to be a 84 maybe. It has the older Onan engine. It was the last year they had the older Onan engine, I believe. B48G versus the P220. Seat's seen better days. Seat adjust. One of the handles is broken, the other one's not. The seat safety switch has been bypassed. These are not reflectors. These are lights. These back tires are very big. They have the holes for wheel weights. I have a set of wheel weights I use on my 322 for plowing. And these are 26 by 12 by 12 tires. Like I said, this fuel gauge is broken, and because it's broken, water gets in the tank and it's rusty. Easy fix. 4 bolts, one here, one there, one up here, and then one on the opposite side. You can pull this whole pan off, and then the tank is just this plastic piece here. Pull the seat off, pull the pan off, pull the tank off, drain it. Not a big deal, takes a few minutes, and I intend on doing that someday with this tractor. I intend to rebuild the engine, restore the whole tractor. This is your rock shaft. So your hydraulic arm drives this piston. This piston moves the shaft, and this shaft is connected to the deck. It has a series of arms that connect the deck and raise and lower the deck as this moves. So the purpose of this, can't currently spin it because it's tight on there. The purpose of this is to adjust your play in this groove so that eventually your hydraulic motor, your hydraulic ram will not be moving the rock shaft. The rock shaft will be stuck shut where it's at, and your ram will just be moving in the free play. And that's how you set your deck height. You can do things like set your deck height all the way up. That way when you're running a snowblower or a snowplow in the front, as you hit your hydraulics, this ram will move, but this rock shaft won't move and your deck won't be going up and down while you're trying to use your hydraulics. This is your hydrostatic fluid level. It's got good fluid. It's just a clear tube that goes to the top and the bottom. If you can see in there, that's the output shaft. And what would happen is an output shaft would come directly at me. And then right here would be mounted, based off of these two holes, we mounted a PTO clutch and a pulley, and you could run a rear PTO. Some of them even had a 540 PTO right here for running tillers or other small tractor style pull behind 3-point and whatnot. There's a guy on eBay called Rueg Manufacturing. He builds and sells 3-point arm systems for these tractors. I've thought about buying them. I think I'm going to make my own just for fun. Also notice it has actual disc brakes, or not disc, drum brakes. The rear tires have drum brakes. So your brakes are real brakes, not like modern lawnmowers. Very good. Headlights, I already said this is your drive. Standard key. Park and brake off. Then park and brake doesn't seem to go on this one. I'll get to that eventually. 1,500 hours. Overall, it looks like it's going to be a good machine. It's going to be an easy restoration if I can get a motor. Let me walk over here. So, from what I've read, the commonality on these motors is that the heat, the motor gets clogged with crap. There's all my spare parts. Hood, side panel, everything for the mower is supposed to be in here. He took it apart. He was a John Deere part-time mechanic. Took it apart and threw it all in this barrel. Tore the engine down. But these heat fins, cooling fins, get clogged with crap because they have panels that go over them. They get clogged with dust, crap, all kinds of stuff. And then the engine will get too hot. It'll overheat and warp the head possibly, or it'll overheat and cause enough stress on the rods, it'll throw a rod. This one threw a rod. Other than that, it looks in great shape. I mean, everything's free and moving. I've torn this engine down twice. I was quoted, the local mechanic quoted me $1,500 to rebuild the engine. And they're not going to do anything but put parts back in it. That's no machining. So for that price, I can buy the parts. I've got a 18 horsepower Briggs that is almost identical right there. So that's actually a spare motor for my skid steer. So everything's here on it. I think I'm gonna clean up the crankshaft, buy a new rod, put it all back together and get her going. This is where the drive shaft to the hydraulic rear end, hydrostat rear end, connects. And then on this side, I don't have it attached, I have it in my shop, is 1 7/16", a big crankshaft diameter. That is where the dual pulley electric clutch mounts. A lot of the problem with finding other engines for this is most engines don't have a dual pulley electric clutch. A lot of the engines I've seen don't have a big enough crankshaft diameter to run my current clutch. So I would have to do more and more modifying. And the $700, $800, $900 they want just for a used 25 horsepower, 20 horsepower motor like this, I can't justify it. I can rebuild this one for what I can buy another used one for and have to modify. I'll get there eventually. But that is, all in all, everything I know about my 420. It sits currently next to my 216. I will give one piece of advice. You cannot tow a hydrostatic. You have to put it in neutral. Easy on these, you put it in neutral. 1 second. You prevent blowing out the rear end. Yep.